Our theme for this week is prophecy. Prophecy is all about calling. God calls certain people to speak for him, and those prophets call their communities to hear the message that God has for them. The Bible is filled with the words of these prophets from long ago, and we still study their words to understand God's teachings better. Prophets teach us about things that are true in all times and places, but they also come from very specific times and places. Prophets are just like us in this way. They had lives and families, communities, careers, but they were given the very difficult task of speaking God's truth to the people around them. Most of the time, people did not want to listen because it's hard to hear that we're not living up to God's expectations of us. But that is the message that prophets have to share. However, there is great hope in knowing what the prophets teach us, that our lives, our families, our careers, and our communities can be lifted up to meet God's expectations. That is the hope that the prophets remind us of. God does not forget about us.
Prophets' words have taken different forms throughout history. And this week, we will look at several of these forms, beginning with our word for today, covenant. A reading from Genesis. God said to Abram, "As for me, this is my covenant with you. You shall be the ancestor of a multitude of nations. I will make you exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of you, and kings shall come from you. As for you, you shall keep my covenant, you and your offspring after you throughout their generations."
The people of ancient Israel who are at the center of the Bible understood their relationship with God through this word covenant. A covenant is a kind of promise. It's an unbreakable promise between someone who is more powerful and someone who is less powerful. In this case, of course, God is most powerful, and the people of Israel much less so. In the covenant, God made the commitment to control his power and to bless Israel. Israel made the commitment to worship God and to follow his law. The covenant began all the way back with Adam and continued with Noah and Abraham and Moses. The Ten Commandments are part of this covenant. God, of course, keeps his promises, but people often forget to. Again and again in history, the people of Israel forgot their commitments, and God sent prophets to remind them. Sometimes the people listened, but sometimes they ignored the prophets, and they brought great trouble on themselves when they did.
Today's food for thought. Can you think of people from history or even your own life that are like prophets from the Bible? What lessons do the prophets teach us? Have you ever made a promise? God does not forget about his promises to us.